Welcome, friends, to Building the Alpha Dory. I'm Dan, and today we're hoping to get some work done on the cleaning up the frames, getting them ready to install in the bottom, nail them to the bottom of the boat. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by, and let's get out into the shop. Yeah, so kind of a nasty day out here today. Blowing rain and just some drizzle. We definitely need the water, but yeah, it's probably blowing a good 20 to 25. Not exactly a nor'easter, but almost. So anyway, last episode we were cutting the limber holes in the frames, and so since then I've brought them over to the bench and just hit them with a little rat tail file. It's either a really coarse metal file or fairly smooth wood file. Either one will work on the oak. You don't want to go with a rough wood file. You'll just be gouging the things. And the idea is to clean up the saw cuts, and that's it. You don't want to take a lot of meat off because that is a structural part of the frame there. So yeah, just took care of that on the bench over here, and now we're getting out the drill, getting ready to put some rivets in these half lap joints. The other thing I did while I was over on the bench was clean up the bottoms of the frames specifically, so that they'll sit nice and square on the bottom of the boat when you nail them to the boat. I also hit the sides of the frames a bit while I was over there, where we cut, and you can see the bandsaw does a really good job of getting it super close. If you're building like a Banks Dory in a old time shop, where you're trying to build a boat a week or whatever, that would be close enough for sure, and it would just go into the boat like that. But we're trying to do a little bit better, higher quality job here or whatever, and so I was hitting those with a plane, and then the bow and stern frames, where the bow is tucking in and where the stern is tucking in. The arms of these are going to get beveled anyway to receive the curvature of the planking. So there's no real need to clean these up now. Just make sure the bottoms are clean and square, because they're going to get nailed on, after which you won't see them again. That's it, they're in the boat. So clean those up, and then like I was saying, get the drill ready to drill for the rivets. So the drill I've got in here is the 1/8 inch drill, which was perfect for the riveting the cross cleats to the bottom of the boat. The 1/8 inch drill results in a tight hole that you can still pound a copper nail through without bending the nail over, but it makes for a real tight hole. Now this, we're going through oak, which is much harder wood, And so what I want to do is open that hole up by a drill size. I think one drill size should do it. We'll see when we start pounding the first one in, see how easy it goes in. But so I want the nails, I want a snug fit on these nails, but I don't need I don't need it as tight as it was going through the soft pine there, the softwood. I want to make sure that the nails are going to go through. I don't want them to split the oak. The oak is so hard that you're putting a lot of sort of unneeded splitting pressures on that when you're trying to drive a nail into an overly tight hole. Excuse me. Okay, so I've got a block here. Sacrificial, just a scrap of wood. And so the idea is to get two rivets into this, sort of at the pointy ends of the diamond that this half flap joint forms. So we'll put one here and one here, and that should hold it between the geometry of the half flap, the two rivets, and the glue. It's going to be a pretty good joint. Alright, that's through. I want to make sure these rivets are far enough away from this face of the frame, the arm of the frame, so that when I do bevel that, I won't be running into the rivet when, especially at the stem and stern where there's, this is a center frame number 2, so there's not going to be a whole lot of bevel on this, if at all. But once when I'm doing those first and fourth frames, I want to make sure I keep the rivets far enough away from the edge of the frame where the bevel where I'm not hitting it with my plane when I'm trying to bevel those. So now I'll check the hole size with the nails I'm using, make sure that it's appropriate, and then I'll drill the rest of them. Alright, so we got a nail in there, and yeah, you can see it's a tight fit, but yeah, I am able to push it through by hand, so yeah, it's just about perfect. And yeah, we'll be able to rivet that up nice and tight. So now we'll drill the rest of them and then get to riveting. frames over just so I've got a visual on the the section of the frame that I want to drill down through, so I don't end up too close to the unseen edge. When I'm looking at it from the other side, I can't see where this edge is, so I'm flipping it over so that I'm close to the so I can see where the edge of the wood is, trying to kind of split the difference between the limber hole and the like I said, staying away from the outside edges here where the bevel's gonna go. And I ended up swapping back to the 1/8 inch drill. The next size bigger, it was tight enough where you could push it through by hand, which it's that's right on the edge of like I don't want them too loose. We'll see how these hammer in. If they're going in hard, then I can always drill them bigger. I can't drill them smaller though, so figured I'd start with the smaller drill, and then I can open them up a little bit if we're having any problems with them. That's also why I'm kind of just wiggling the drill a bit as it goes through to open these holes up a little bit so that these ones won't be too tight. Yeah, it's got to be a nasty day out on the ocean today with the wind kicking up a chop and that constant just drizzle of rain sheeting in. Wind's in the wrong direction at the moment to hear the surf, but I'm sure we'll hear it later today if the wind calms down a bit or clocks around in the east. there's a storm raging outside is always a good way to keep you honest, and you kind of realize this sort of forces that these boats will have to contend with at some point. So there's all the rivet holes drilled. Alright, so here I've got a little riveting set up for the frames. So I've got my clamp on my bench vise here, plank vise. And so in the vise I've got this good size chunk of metal. Yeah, it's a fire door counterweight. So it would have been hung from a length of hemp rope, and it's enough weight to keep a fire door from running down its track and sealing off a section of a mill building. And in the event of a fire, the fire would burn through the hemp line that held these weights, and once the line snapped and the weight dropped, then the doors would close on their own to limit the spread of fire. So I got this actually from, I took it out of my grandfather's house when my grandparents moved out of their home in Newburyport, and my great-grandfather worked at a fire door company for a number of years. Alright, so let's see how these things go together. Alright, so that's in there. And nice tight fit, almost a little bit too tight, which is why I had that little bit larger drill in there originally. We'll see what happens. So grab a pair of cutters and cut this nail off, leaving a little bit. There's the rivet, riveted in. That's really not going anywhere now. See if I can loosen these holes up just a little bit. said, that oak is pretty tough stuff. Yeah, that went in easier. I think that's probably the way to do it. Just make sure those holes are as opened up as they can be with that drill size versus going to the next one where they're not really loose, but they're just not quite as tight as I think I'd like them. And sort of hold the cutter a little bit off the surface when I'm cutting off that rivet, so that I got some rivet to work with. First thing I do when I start forming the rivet is I'll usually give a hit to either side of the sort of blade that's formed when the cutter cuts the rivet off. You can see the cutter doesn't cut it off the same all the way around. It kind of makes a sharp edge, triangular shaped sharp edge. So I'll try and hit either side of that, either corner of the edge, to just kind of catch the washer on the rivet, so the washer's not jumping off the rivet as I'm hammering it, shaping it. Once the rivet burr, the washer, once the burr is captured there on the rivet, then I'll go ahead and start kind of working the hammer around the rivet. So this one's going here. So I've got the rivet heads facing forward. So let's see if we can't keep it that way throughout the boat. Head of the rivets facing the bow. Not that it matters at all, but you know, sometimes we like put a little bit too much thought into stuff. Like symmetry isn't really a terribly important thing as far as the direction of rivet heads, but maybe it's just kind of an extra little level of quality. Oh, or silliness, as the case may be. Nice rivet head there. That one really mushroomed out pretty nice. Okay. Yeah, the other thing I'm looking for is, oh, here it is, my rivet can. So I can, see, I'm cutting off a fair amount of these nails. I don't have any shorter nails. So, you need them that long to go through the bottom and the cleats, and also to go through the stem, the foot of the stem and the foot of the stern, to go through there and through the bottom to cleat that together, even more so. But they're way long for doing the frames, so I am kind of, I don't want to waste that copper. Save it and we'll recycle it. Get a little money for it, maybe. Help defray the cost of construction. Yeah, so the weight of this this steel is a really good makes for a really good rivet backing block for the rivets. And it's sitting on the bench right over, well, the clamp, the vertical leg of the clamp, and also there's a bench leg underneath there, so it's well braced, you know, directly to the floor. And yeah, it makes for a good solid riveting surface, backing block. Thanks for stopping by Building the Alpha Dory, and yeah, hopefully you'll stop in next time when we finish riveting up the frames and start nailing them into the bottom. Hopefully we'll get that done next video. Anyway, have a great day, and God bless.